Hello, everyone. My name is Chen Jing. You can call me CJ. I'm from the University, Nanjing University of China. And I'm very pleased to be invited to this conference. It's my first time in digital oriental lists in a conference or any other events. So thanks to the sorry, I forgot the inviter's name. Her first name is Madalena. Yeah, thanks to her invitation, that's why I'm here. And I gave her several topics, the projects we are going on, and she picked up the photography one. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this ongoing project. And actually, I was trying to make commentary to the first presentation because that was fascinating issue, but I didn't have a chance. Okay, so here is my title. It's about the heritage for future. It's about the archive of a photograph. And the idea actually is not really raised from this photographer, but constantly I found this exhibition is very interesting because he's photographing the immigrants for more than 25 years. And he got a huge collection about the portraits and oral histories of those immigrants. But he said something very interesting at the event because he mentioned he's already 75. So he's worried about after he died, all these photos or all those people, the history would go where. So he asked the questions, but also that's a kind of original question for us, because we think the photographs are kind of a historical ephemera, and also it's very cherished heritage for the future. And also we want to develop an individual archive and with the assistance of artificial intelligence to help us to annotate and collect the data from the photographs. So ephemera, it's kind of theoretical concept for us to adopt it. It's a late 19th century term created in English. It also became a kind of an international scientific vocabulary. And because matched to the insects and also some kind of a printing material. So that's a meaning in the English context. But in China, it's very interesting because we also have a kind of a similar concept we call the field. But the little bit different is we didn't have the same meaning of the ephemera in the printing culture. Basically, in China, we don't have a specific term for those kinds of ephemeral materials. But in English, we call the ephemera as a kind of paper materials, such as advertisements, air sickness bags, poster cards, and photos, and lots of newspapers. Most of them are produced on the purpose of consuming. So they're not produced forever. And basically, people just use it and throw them away. So they're not just like other objects, artificial objects produced for appreciation or preserving. So especially now in the digital age, we also have those kinds of digital ephemera. And also they became another kind of gray documents. It's a kind of paradoxy of the digital ephemera. On the one hand, everyone knows once things goes online, they exist forever. Basically, you know all the data or the images, no matter it's images or text, once you upload it to the internet, it's somewhere. But at the same time, we know all the websites and the contents of the internet pages actually are disappearing every day, every second. That's why people start to do those kind of archaeology of the internet, because almost if you go back to like even 5 or 10 years ago, posters or news on the website, most of them are gone. It's hard to find them. And So that's a Chinese web page built by a person who did this very interesting, website called computer in the desktop, because he wants to show the young generation what the old generations of computers look like the first Apple II Plus and also the Macintosh, all those old types of computer. And also he installs the operative system on those computer. It's a virtual one, it's a mirror edition. So the users can try and experience. I introduced this to my students on the class, and everyone got fascinating with those things, because most of my students are born after the 2000, which means most of them actually I can't have a digital born. So they totally no idea about the computers or old machines before the 2000. So that's why we think it's as a type of a material, ephemera is quite important, no matter it's in paper version or digital version. But also we think those ephemera plays a very important role in the historical studies, because also we can kind of get the metadata, or we can annotate all those things to get information from those kind of objects. And very important is we think those kind of fragile, tangible pieces of information can contain very rich memories. So that's a kind of a purpose or motivation for our project. And then we think there are several things we always think, keeping our mind during doing this project. The first one is how to deal with materials containing the ephemera information, because all those information we collected from the materials are related to individual person. Once this person die or so getting old, a lot of information actually was gone. And also because they're material residue, which means we cannot build a laboratory to preserve all those documents. It's too hard to do that. And also because property ownership, which means we cannot buy or ask those kinds of materials from the owners. And also it's a record of the everyday life, which means it's not a kind of history for everyone. It's not a common history. It's very emotional and individual. And also it's not systematic and it's not linear. So sometimes it's just like a part of a pieces. So which we have to figure out how to mix them into a shape of a network. And also their documents, and we have to follow the protocol of archiving to preserve them. So we cannot just pile them together, and that's disordered time. So the first project of ephemera was started from actually its advertisements. We collected advertisements images from the old newspapers published in the 1890s to 1940s. They're all old, advertisements on the newspapers. And we have done the annotation of the metadata, and we also archived all the materials. And then I moved to another target because it's very interesting experiences. I visited a local collector in Chengdu. He has those kind of family album archive. All those documents are physical. He got all those kind of albums from the local, the trash collectors. But the problem is he doesn't know how to archive them or preserve them. So he just piles them together into shelves and separates diaries from the photo albums, which means we cut down the memory and the photos. We don't know who's in the photo and what's the relationship between them. So, and also we don't know which family or which region they're from. So it's more like all those things are puzzles, and a lot of old, and also those some things actually it's for the computer, no, for the factory tests. So all kinds of different photographs, even some really old one, and this one already fading from the time. And so we start to think about how to think about that things, because they're too new to be treated as artificial objects. I mean, in the official institute, because in Chinese we call the 文物. So those has to be old enough to be preserved by the local museum or library. And because those things, most of them actually just in the past 100 years. So they're not old enough. And also most of them actually are preserved or kept by the families. But for the young generation, like grandson, probably they will not know anything before their grandparents. So they would throw them away or just sell to the local trash collectors. So that's why we start to think about what is heritage. And mostly we think about the heritage, it's more about from the Western view about the heritage conservation, because we think there has to be kind of material properties, preferences for grand and long lasting, and has to be a sensitive and integrated, which means has to be commonly valuable. But this material, I mean, the photographs we saw, and actually more belong to the memory of one family or only small group of people. Sometimes even there is no huge historical events background. So how can we think about that? Can we just put them together to map a big picture? That's why we think about actually such kind of historical program, photograph can be a heritage. It's a personal heritage, but also a public one. It carries memory of emotions of individual lives and the records of history and events, part of personal history. It's not just to belong to the grand narrative, but it's quite important. And then thanks to the technology, at least now we have some ways to digitize all those photos, because back to the 20 years ago, it's hard to do that. Only the big event, big institutes or university or libraries can do that because expenses is too high. And also we have some data processing technology now, and also we have the help with AI. And then we also think about how to not just digitizing, we have to think about those objects virtually. We need to find a home for them. And also we want to digitally archive them and dig into the value of the photos. We learn first from the commercial image database like Amazon Cloud and also the Huawei or Apple. They all have those kinds of application of photos. But they use those things just through the kind of fake permission from the users. Once you use this photo or upload your photos to the cloud, then those big companies can use this photos as training data to train their own AIs and sell to other people or companies for making money. So to us, it's not the best way, and also most of those things are cannot be organized more personally or systematically. It also look at some research databases, mostly owned and established by the public institutes, and they mostly would deal with the historical photo. That's why I was mentioned about most of photos has to be related to some big historical events. And also they have to have some research value. And they already have done the cataloging because most of those things are physically archived by those institutes. Like this one is the New York Public Library. They have the very fantastic photograph collection. And also this is a wonderful archive set up by the MoMA. It's only 384 photos, but they made a delicate, complicated database about the photos. And also this is done by Wexler and she's a professor at Yale University. It's great in a project based on the FSA photos at the Library Congress. And this one, it's about Chinese, he's a photographer. It's made by the University of Bristol. And also now they have another mural server at Shanghai Jiao Tong University. So all those things actually gave us good examples. So we started thinking what kind of photograph archive we want to do. Firstly, it has to be small size. We don't want to, and also we don't have money to extend a really large scale. And also we think not only the historical photos can be archived, but also some personal things. And we believe all the photos does have a value. And we want to establish a metadata schema and do some cross-sourcing, and with the help of AI. So this is our website. It's a kind of basically spatial framework for all the photos. And basically you can do the time change and to see that also according corresponding change of a location, the photographers and the topics. And then you also can say all those images through the searching and the metadata, you can do the filtering. And then we have those, we want to help some photographers. Sorry, the screen is stuck. Can I quit? Yeah, I need to quit and replay. Okay, here we go. So, and also we want to help the photographer actually to make their own page. So each one actually have their own page. So we can see the timeline. So I can show you later because this one is automatically setting for 3 seconds screening. Okay, so I can show you through just, do I still have time?
You still have 2 minutes.
Okay, great, wonderful. So I can just show you the website, it's more clear. Okay, here you go. So basically that's the map, and you can see everything on that. And then we can photographer, that's what I mentioned, because we want to set up a page for the photographer. Even this one is not a professional one. This is actually the professor. And this person used to be a professor, but he's an amateur poetry writer, and he visited Sanxia for 10 years and made a lot of photos. And this one is a local journalist. So we also made the different topics, like this one. It's based on the students' project. It's about the Sansanling projects. It's a Gezhouba. It's a really big, the largest one before the Sanxia water facilities on Changjiang, Yangtze River. And the students found this negative films from anonymous person, and she digitized all those things and then upload to the website and annotated the important information like the track, and also you can say the female and the males, and you can distinguish the image from the collection. And she wrote her dissertation based on this collection. Okay, so let's back to, another thing I want to show, it's about actually the metadata, because those things are really important for the individual photographer, because we want to let them to annotate their own things. So actually they can just find very interesting, they can upload photos on the website and at the backend, and then there is the metadata schema for them to select and fill in. All those information can be showed on the front end, and they also can annotate the part of the content to help the AI to recognize them and add a tag. So all those things are made by our team, and we would like to share this website to the photographers for free, because we don't want to have those things only for the research purpose, because we are still thinking about we need to find a way to let the amateur people to use archive to preserve their own memory. And so that's basically what we have done. Let me see the last thing we have. That's something we also developed a Lightroom plugin. So help a photographer to just download and use when you use a Lightroom, because that's a very universal software for the photographers. So they can automatically upload all the things to the archive. That's our team. We're working, last summer, we started to work with the local library to digitize the photos from the past. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we are a bit out of time, so there will be time for one question. And as it happens, we have one question.
Yes, thank you very much. Really enjoyed your presentation here. And I was thinking that the way you were speaking about the ephemera made me think of archaeology, where there's a similar case where if you find one small artifact, it really is sort of unimportant on its own. You can't do anything with it, but it's only if you find it at the actual site, at the dig site, in the context of all these other artifacts, that you can start to really make use of it. And so it made me think like, okay, maybe some of the problems you're facing could be answered by the methodology that archaeology has already developed. So that led me then to the question, what kind of fields have you looked at for inspiration to develop your methodology in this?
I think mostly it's a good commentary. Thank you. So mostly we are still in the field of photographers for those moments. And because the metadata is based on the theory and methodological framework of the photograph, mostly because we want to work for the photographers first. But it's also a good view to think about that. I mean, from the perspective of archaeology. But difficult, I think, it's because for the archaeology, they have a spot, which means they have some specific fixed in the area so they can dig in. And also the object is kind of fixed to stick to this field. So there is a layers of culture they can dig into. And all the things, it's more like, I won't say stable, but at least more fixable than what we're dealing with. That's why we want photographers to make annotation, because we want to record their memories and their things, because nobody knows what they are doing. I mean, when and where and why they take those photos, except themselves. So I think it's a good, comparative, methodology, but a little bit different. But we will think about that. Thank you.